your birthday. This lovely lady is not only punctilious, but punctual, but punctual, but punctual, but punctual.
You say you've been hurt, now you're I wanna be your man.
Breakfast with Elli.
Mode ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam shechazarta bi nishmati b'chemla raba emunatecha.
Louis XVI had his relationship with Marie Antoinette. Louis XV had his thing about furniture. But do you know about Louis IX, the king who tried to wipe out Judaism once and for all? Crowned in 1226, Louis IX was the type of king who liked to take justice into his own hands. He'd often personally judge cases and deliver punishments in his great hall in Paris. And he also had a thing about the Jews. He forced Jews into manual labor with the Ordinance of Milan in 1230 and liked to debate Jews about their religion. In 1232, Pope Gregory IX received a letter claiming that the Talmud, the enormous Jewish text that had defined Jewish practice since being compiled in the 5th century, attacked the Catholic Church at least 35 times and needed to be destroyed. If the Pope agreed, there would be no more Talmud, and as an added bonus, no more Jewish practice. The Pope announced that the Talmud was going to be put on trial and instructed all Catholic institutions in France, Italy, Spain, and Portugal to seize all copies in their midst. Officials burst into synagogues and confiscated precious handwritten volumes of the Talmud from synagogues across Europe. 2 months later, the Talmud was put on trial, and can you guess who oversaw it? Yup, this guy. King Louis IX ordered 4 prominent rabbis to defend the Talmud. They faced off against Nicholas Donin, a Parisian Jew who had abandoned his faith and converted to Catholicism. Donin was not a fan of Judaism. He was also the one who'd written the damning letter to the Pope that started this crisis. King Louis set the rules. Rule number 1, the rabbis couldn't criticize Christianity in any way. And if rule number 2 could have been announced, it would have been that there's no way the Jews can win. The trial did not go well. At one point, King Louis got so enraged, he shouted that a good Christian would plunge his sword into a Jew and not debate. One rabbi had to flee for his life. The remaining prominent rabbis argued all they could, but the Talmud was found guilty and condemned to burning. 2 years later, officials searched all over France for any remaining volumes of Talmud and other Hebrew books. On June 17, 1242, 24 wagons deposited close to 10,000 books at the Place de Grève near Notre Dame Cathedral, where they were burned. After the trial, King Louis expelled the Jews from France and led crusades to the Holy Land that targeted Jewish communities along the way. And even with his crimes against the Jews, they still named a city after him. How about that for history?
Good morning and welcome to Breakfast with Elli. It is Tuesday, Yom Shehukfu Beikitev, the 9th day of August, the 12th day of Menachem Av. The Torah portion is Va'etchanan, HaYom Yom Shlishi Shabbos, the third day, counting up towards Shabbos, and we will be learning the third Aliyah. How are you this morning? Why am I in front of 770 Eastern Parkway? This beautiful picture with a reflection. You like that? Isn't that gorgeous? Yeah, that was just taken recently by a very, very prominent photographer. And I'm going to tell you why in just a few minutes. All right? Let's get started. Take your front two tzitzis. Oops. We should start that again because we didn't get the thing right. What? Oh, okay. All right. Very good. Ready? Front two tzitzis. Got it? Let's go.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al mitzvat tzitzit.
All right. Al divrei Torah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu Al divrei Torah.
All right. Hareini Mekabel.
Hareini Mekabel alai mitzvat aseh shel ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. I take upon myself every single day to love my fellow friend in a very special way.
All right. And Torah Tziva. That is funny. All right. One of my quarters wanted to be in tzedakah. And so it fell on the floor, and I replaced it. And it turns out that this is a Canadian quarter, and the Canadian quarter sticks to the magnet on my computer. I think that's very funny. All right, time to give tzedakah. You ready?
I put it in the pushki, the tzedakah box. I put it in the pushki, the tzedakah box. I put it in the pushki for someone else to keep.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, I put it in the pushki, the tzedakah box. I put it in the pushki, the tzedakah box. I put it in the pushki for someone else in need.
All right, tzedakah has been given, and now we go to the saying of the Shema. Are you ready? Let's do it.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
All right, fantastic. And now, breakfast. All right, coffee and yogurt. What are you having? Baruch ato Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihiyah b'dvarei. Oh, that's good. All right. Had to make my own coffee this morning. I know, right? But I did get a chance to go to bingo yesterday, so that was good. We went to the one up in Muncie. It is much quieter up there. It's really nice. All right, today in Jewish history and the reason for this picture. All right, the 12th day of Menachem Av. The Rebbe said on this day that the Alter Rebbe the Alter Rebbe repeated what the Mizritcher Maggid said, quoting the Baal Shem Tov. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You have to love your fellow as yourself, which is an interpretation of and commentary of Ve'ahavta es Hashem l'ikecha. Love Hashem, your God. He who loves his fellow Jews loves Hashem, because a Jew has within himself a part of Chelik Elokai Mimal Mamash, a part of God above, since Adam's neshama was blown into him by Hashem. Now, because we have within us this part of Hashem, therefore, when one loves our fellow, which is his inner essence, one loves Hashem. Very cool, right? All right, let me get these pictures away over here so that you can see them one by one. Okay, we'll start here. All right. Today, the Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, was compelled to participate in a public debate. It was held in the king's presence against the Jewish convert to Christianity, Pablo Cristiani. The Ramban's brilliant defense of Judaism and refutation of Christianity's claims served as the basis of many such future disputations throughout the generations. Now, because his victory was an insult to the king's regime, he was forced to flee Spain. And he came to Jerusalem, where he found just a handful of Jewish families living in abject poverty, and he revived the community there. The synagogue in the old city is still in use today, perhaps the oldest standing synagogue in the world. Speaking of synagogues, today is the day in 1940 that the building at 770 Eastern Parkway in the Crown Heights section of New York was purchased by the organization known as Agudus Chasidei Chabad, the Chabad Lubavitch community, to house the living quarters, the study, and the office, the yeshiva, and the synagogue of the sixth and previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. It also became the headquarters of his son-in-law and successor, the current Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, and continues to be the center of Chabad Lubavitch's global network of Jewish institutions and outreach. Here's a little bit about 770. Oh, what happened? Here we go.
Chassidische Yid, Rebbe, Befrat, to move on Eastern Parkway, that whole block were professionals. They were.
When we moved to Crown Heights on Albany Avenue and Eastern Parkway, it was at that time that the Rebbe, who had been in the Greystone Hotel, they bought 770 Eastern Parkway, and the Rebbe was moved over to Eastern Parkway. And at that time, there were only 3 Lubavitcher families living in the area. For one reason or another, my father liked it in Lubavitch, even though he wasn't a Lubavitcher, and we began to daven there.
Chassidische Yid, Rebbe, Befrat, to move on Eastern Parkway, that whole block were professionals. Many of them were members of the Jewish Center, which was conservative. Most of the Chassidim then, who were already around, lived in Bronzeville, 25 minutes from Crown Heights.
I was learning in Yeshiva Torah Das, and I told my father, I want to switch to Lubavitch. And he said, you're an American kid. You're not gonna make it in Lubavitch. We're not Lubavitch Chassidim. And you don't know what a European yeshiva is. It's not like the yeshivas that you've been with. I said, well, in Torah Das they speak Yiddish, so there they'll speak Yiddish. he said, well, if you want to go, it's okay with me, but be prepared that you may find it unpleasant or difficult because it's a European yeshiva, it's not an American yeshiva. I didn't find it unpleasant at all.
Wir können sich kommen zu vorne in der Medina und nur wollen dort eigene Dalle Dame und machen eine Runde Dalle Dame sa Chemot, Lasayim und Vriach und sagen, als wir da Herze gekommen, wir sind schon besser. Aber bechol mokem shehu heilig beise Yime und das, was tut sich in Medina, nie das ist ein Schliches, hat ihn gesagt, Milch hat Chile. Also me will gar nicht haben, kein Dalle Dames für sich, ganz Amerika wird werden, oder die Dalle Dames nicht anders, wie die Dalle Dames, wie sie seine gewähren, Mever Leyam und Chosikader Elli.
The Rebbe once explained that since a Rebbe is a general neshama, so the Mela, when the Rebbe moves into a house, it is not just a private person moving in, but it's actually a house for the whole Jewish nation.
Wow, right? That's pretty cool. 770 Eastern Parkway. Now, let me show you some of the pictures. This is a rally in 770. There were thousands of children there. Yep. How about that? This is what the area looked like in 1915. They found an old picture, and obviously what it looks like in 2020. You like that? Pretty cool. This is that beautiful reflection photo that we showed you. And this is supposedly plans for the expansion of 770. I know. Wouldn't that be amazing? One day. We'll see if they actually do it ever. One day. All right? So today, in 1940, is the day that 770 was purchased. And you can go daven there if you'd like. 770 Eastern Parkway, Brooklyn, New York. Now, there are replicas of 770 all around the world. Here is in Jerusalem, one of 17. I think there are more already, but at the time this video was made, there were 17. All right, enough of that. Who is this? Well, I'll tell you right now. The Bronx Bombers traded for Jewish relief pitcher Scott Efros, sending a minor league pitcher to the Cubs in return for the right-hander. The sidearm pitcher made his major league debut last August, pitching 4 games for the Cubs. In 2022, the 28-year-old, who was technically still a rookie, had pitched 47 games for Chicago, striking out 50 with an earned run average of 2.66. Efros has surrendered only 2 home runs and 11 walks in 44 innings. A native of Twinsburg, Ohio, a suburb roughly halfway between Cleveland and Akron, Ephros attended the now-defunct congregation Shir Shalom. He wears a Magen David, a Star of David necklace when he pitches. The Cubs selected Ephros in the 15th round of the 2015 MLB draft after 3 stellar years at the University of Indiana. The Yankees currently are the top team in Major League Baseball, with the trade deadline looming. Ephros' acquisition supplies the Yankees with a solid replacement after multiple injuries hampered the team's bullpen. Now, the Yankees also recently drafted Jewish pitcher Eric Raiselman, a hard-throwing righty and the son of 2 Jewish immigrants from the former Soviet Union. So the Yonkels are becoming the Yonkels, right? All right. Hilchas Beis HaBechira, the study of the Holy Temple. The Rebbe said we should continue this through the 12th day of the Hebrew month of Av, the 15th day of the Hebrew month of Av. So let's. All right, Hilchas Beis HaBechira, day 17. At the entrance to the upper level of the Beis HaMikdash, there were 2 cedar beams, atzei shitim, upon which one would climb to the roof. Now, markers on the upper level differentiated between the roof of the Kodesh and the roof of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy and the Holy of Holies, where only the Kohen Gadol was allowed to go, and only on Yom Kippur. Once a year, between one Pesach and the next, they would coat the Beis HaMikdash with cement. Wow, that's fascinating. I knew that. Did you know that? I don't know if you did or not. And that's why we're teaching it, to tell you things you may not have known. All right? HaYom Yom today for the 12th day of Av.
The Torah is not just a rule book, a long list of do's and don'ts. For us, the Jewish people, the Torah is as essential as the air that we breathe. Once, a couple that was expecting a baby wrote a letter to the Rebbe saying that immediately upon the birth of our child, we intend to introduce the child to an environment of Torah learning and mitzvah observance. The Rebbe responded that even before the baby is born, the atmosphere in your home, the atmosphere of Torah in your home, can already influence the child. Today's HaYom Yom, it contains a beautiful Hasidic teaching, Hasidic interpretation on how the Torah is the eternal protector of the Jewish people throughout the process of life and death. Now, in the Shema, we read of the obligation to study Torah. B'shivtecha b'veisecha, when you're at home, you should study Torah. When you travel on the way, on your journey, you should study Torah. When you go to sleep, you shall study Torah. And when you awake, you shall study as well. Says today's HaYom Yom, the Hasidic interpretation of these words of the Shema, the inner meaning of when you sit at home. Here we're talking about the time before a child is born, when the soul of that child is up in the big garage upstairs. That's the place where the souls are all gathered, basking in the light of Hashem's presence. Even at that point, way up there in the heavens, the soul is studying Torah and being protected by Torah. When you go on your way, that journey, that's the journey of the soul's descent into the body and the journey of life. So here on planet Earth, we are to study Torah, and Torah is our protector. When you lie down, that means after death, when a person dies, the soul continues to study Torah. Uv kumecha, and when you arise, that means in the future, when there is the resurrection of the dead, we will again engage in Torah study. So it doesn't matter where you are in the great process of life, the Torah is always to be studied and is always our protector.
I'm okay with that. Yep. I like that. Oh, man. I'm telling you. Things are really, really good. All right. Moving on to breaking news. Oh dear. Getting a little bit of a summer cold, I think. That's okay. All right. An Israeli startup called Air showed off their prototype for a flying vehicle. Keeping it simple and without requiring flight school, it promises to have them available for mass production by 2024.
Growing up in the 90s, I remember that every single science magazine was promising we were just a few years away from having flying cars. Well, it's been 25 years, but I'm now standing in the warehouse of one Israeli company that's promising to have exactly that.
It's in countless movies. You hop in your car and hop into the air. In fact, as long as people have had private cars, they have wanted them to fly. But the reality is a little more difficult.
And the dream was going on the road and then flying into the sky. This is very problematic because if you do that, you get a mediocre car with a mediocre aircraft.
Personal planes mean either the very expensive, private jets, or the very unreliable, ultralights staying up on a wing in a prayer, and neither of which are as simple as driving.
The assumption that the pilot is very, very skillful, and he's very, very, he's very, very focused during flight or before flight, and so aircraft are designed around that. And cars are not.
Those challenges have existed for as long as powered flight, making the flying car a pipe dream. Until now. Because here in Israel, one startup is promising to deliver that dream to customers by 2024, an airborne electric vehicle capable of vertical takeoff and landing.
So we are creating something which is an aircraft for the mass production or mass use of people, for day-to-day use, commute or leisure.
It's no pipe dream this time. Air did its first test flight in Israel last month, showing off the vehicle's ability to hover and steer in the air. Now the company is raising funds to perfect the machine. But how do you overcome the same challenges that have dogged flying cars for decades?
Okay, I'm not a formal pilot or anything, but I do have 30 minutes of airtime in a single-engine propeller plane. And I remember that, even though it's one of the easier levels of plane, was an entire array full of dials, altimeters, readouts of all kinds of descriptors. A very complicated system. But this is pretty much just a joystick.
There's the secret. Make flying simple with software that covers the majority of what a pilot has to do.
We think that we've come to a point in time where the technology actually allows us to do that. Almost everything on this aircraft is, there are sensors, the control is electronics, there's computers that are aware of everything that happens.
And those sensors control all the technical data, airspeed, level, scanning for danger, making flying as simple as driving a car. And while Israeli law wouldn't let me take the real one for a flight, I got to experience it on their simulator.
So when you train on an airplane, most of the training is done on emergencies, low speed, stalling. All of those are being eliminated by fly-by-wire because the instrument takes care of itself. In this sense, the skill level is much reduced.
A skill level low enough for me to safely put the craft down, well beyond anything I got to in just a few hours of flight school. And because it's electric and can take off vertically like a toy drone, you don't need an airstrip. A backyard will do.
When you start being vertical, you don't need the infrastructure, you can come closer to the community. And if you are green and silent, you can also have the opportunity to not negatively interact with the community.
So does that mean just anyone can go out and buy a flying machine? Not yet. Many countries are still working on how to regulate flying electric vehicles and who can get a license. Then there's the cost. At $150,000, it's lower than most planes, but a lot higher than all but the most expensive sports or luxury cars. But the company expects the prices to drop as the tech improves, meaning the age of the flying car is just about cleared for takeoff.
Wow, right? Wow. And now a word from our sponsors.
And now, a word from our sponsors. PestProRidall.com.
PestProRidall.com. Trusted by the best to keep away the pests. We are offering COVID-19 disinfection services. Mention this ad and get 1 month free service. Visit us at PestProRidall.com.
Tarzane Group. Micro, miniature, and small orchids. Go to tarzanegroup.com or call Tomas at 305-440-0565. That's 305-440-0565 and order today. Visit Tomas and Yair at tarzanegroup.com. Micro, miniature, and small orchids. Beautiful in your home. Go to the website and read Tomas's orchid blog. And by Dina D Design. DinaDDesign@gmail.com. Fine artwork, custom made to your specifications. Logos, wall hangings, Judaica. And you can even have something for your child's room. Dina D Designs. Go to her Facebook or Instagram or call or text. Thank you very much to our sponsors. If you'd like to become a sponsor, please go right up here to where it says patreon.com/theactorsrabbi, and you can contribute even only $1 a month if you'd like, but that'll help us bring this broadcast to you on a daily basis and cover our expenses. Be sure to thank your sponsors when shopping and mention Breakfast with Elli when you're shopping there. There might be discounts. Thanks for watching.
Good morning, Vincent. All right, patreon.com/theactorsrabbi or breakfastwithelli.live/tipjar if you would like to contribute to bringing Torah around the world. Today we have listeners from Germany and Israel and London and apparently Amsterdam. Are you in Amsterdam or Jerusalem right now, Vincent? All right, so there you have it. Isn't that great? I'm in love. I'm in love. I absolutely love it. I really do. All right. Thank you. We are now going to our portion of Torah for today. All right, hold on one second. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. Oh, all right. That's not working right now. Wonder why that's not working. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. That is really weird. is really, really weird. All right, let's figure this out here. Let's see if this works. Oh, that wasn't right. Okay. All right. Well, we did that anyway. I am so sorry. I'm just having a little bit of a weird thing happening over here. All right. Let's... all right. I'm going to have to fix that. I'm going to have to do that later. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. All right. Today's Parsha is Parshas Va'etchanan. Amsterdam. Very, very cool. All right. Parshas Va'etchanan opens with Moshe's description of how at the end of the 40-year detour in the desert, he once again pleaded with Hashem to let him enter the land of Israel, and how Hashem refused his request. In light of what we've just said, it would seem that should form part of the historical material reviewed in the preceding Parsha, which concludes with the events immediately preceding Moshe's tefillah, his prayer. Why then is it placed here at the beginning of Parshas Va'etchanan? Moshe knew that the generation standing before him was not on the same level of spiritual perception as that of the preceding generation, who had witnessed the miracles of the Exodus and the giving of the Torah. He therefore understood that the confrontation with the materiality of the physical world would be a struggle, and that would take time, perhaps a long time, until they would accomplish the purpose for which they were entering the land. He therefore wanted to accompany them into the land in order to boost their divine consciousness as much as possible to his level. True, they hadn't seen what he and his generation had seen, but they might be inspired by the intensity of his communion with Hashem. If he would cross the Jordan with them, it might give them the strength to conquer the land and then take possession of it with the fullest, most spiritual sense. As we will see, the spiritual perception of the generation of the desert compared to that of the generation of the conquest was like that of sight compared to hearing. When we see something, we don't need to be convinced of what we saw. We know it to be so. After all, we saw it. In contrast, when we hear something or hear about something, we may be convinced of what we heard, but our conviction can be overturned by persuasion and argument. Seeing is a direct perception and therefore incontrovertible, whereas hearing is indirect and therefore subject to challenge, as we have spoken many times. Thus, even if the Jews of the generation entering the land of Israel would not doubt the truth of their Jewish beliefs for even just a moment, the facade of materiality would still have a louder voice in their minds than it ever could have had in their parents. The reality of Hashem and the subordination of the physical to the spiritual had simply not been burned into their souls with the same intensity. Thus, Moshe wanted to impart this spiritual sight to the new generation. Hashem, you took the initiative to show your servant your magnanimity. Hard to say. Please let me cross over and see the good land. Now, had he been able to see the land from within his eyes, it would have looked different to the entire Jewish people. But Hashem only let him see the land from afar. Ascend to the peak of Har Nebo and lift up your eyes westward, northward, southward, and eastward, and see it, but only from afar with your eyes, for you will not cross the Jordan River, Hashem said in the Pasuk. Resigned to the fact that his people would not attain this level of divine perception, he instructed them to at least listen to the decrees and the laws that I am teaching you, thus setting the tone for the rest of his address to them, and indeed for the rest of the book of Deuteronomy. And we'll delve more in this tomorrow. In the third Aliyah, Moshe teaches the people about the 3 cities of refuge on the eastern side of the Jordan River. These cities provided refuge for an individual who had inadvertently murdered another. All right, Shnayim Yomi, but before we do Shnayim Yomi, I have to go to my file over here and pop it in because I didn't get a chance to do that yet. All right, so here is Shnayim Yomi.
Shlishi of Parshas Vaschanan begins with Moshe Rabbeinu having a small chelik of Eretz Yisrael. When the Yidden enter Eretz Yisrael, so we know there are 6 Ari Miklat that are set up, 6 cities of refuge, cities where a member of Klal Yisrael that kills accidentally can run and be safe, and not be killed by the Goal Adam, by the family of the murdered. These cities, 3 were in Eretz Yisrael, the main ones. There were 6 main ones. 3 were in Eretz Yisrael, and 3 were outside Eretz Yisrael. Me'aver Yarden, where only 2.5 Shvatim lived. Bnei Gad, Bnei Ruvain, Chatzi Shevet Menashe. So the 3 that were in Eretz Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu could have no part in. He wasn't allowed to enter Eretz Yisrael, as we already learned in Rishon. But the 3 that were outside Eretz Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu was told, you can separate them, you could set them up. They won't be active until we enter Eretz Yisrael, but at least you have a part in some connection to Eretz Yisrael. And he set those up. It's very interesting to note that even though only 2.5 Shvatim lived outside Eretz Yisrael, they had the same amount of Ari Mikla. Why is that? The Gemara tells us that there were many murderers there. But so what? These cities were for people murder accidentally. So what does it matter that there were many murderers in that part of the world? The answer that many Svarim explain is that we all are sensitized and desensitized by the people that we're around. And if you live amongst people that act in a certain way, it becomes part of you. And if we live amongst murderers, we're desensitized to how special and important life is. And unfortunately, that leads to many accidental murders as well. Just a big message in surrounding ourselves by the right people and the right communities and the right environments. The Aliyah continues where Moshe Rabbeinu is ready to actually give over the rest of Torah and Chizuk to Bnei Yisrael. And he reminds us of our journey to get where we are. He reminds us of the nations that we had to fight through, and that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was by our side and leading us now into Eretz Yisrael. And remembering again that we're going to have a foundation in Torah mitzvos as we enter Eretz Yisrael.
All right, fantastic. All right, here we go. Our Parsha report.
Hello, and welcome back to the Parsha Report. You'll have to excuse me this week. I have a little bit of a cold. Anyways, a very important part of this week's Torah portion is the mitzvah of tefillin. With us now to talk about tefillin is our very own Larry Goldstein, who just began putting on tefillin this morning. Larry?
Hi, I'm Larry Goldstein, the attorney for the Itchy Kadoozy Show and its subsidiaries, the Parsha Report and the Week in Review. And I'm also a first-time tefillin putter-otter. This is my grandfather's tefillin, which I've had mounted in a plexiglass box and hung on my living room wall for years, until finally one day I figured, hey, my grandfather was sent to Siberia just for owning these puppies. Ha! And he still put them on every day. In Siberia! The least I could do was wake up a half hour earlier in the morning to put them on myself. Ha! Of course, it always helps to have a little bit of a deeper understanding of the mitzvah. So please join me while I place a call to the Tefillin Technical Support Line to find out, won't you?
Tefillin Technical Support.
Hi, my name is Larry.
If you're calling about purchasing a new pair of tefillin, press 1 now or say purchase. If you're calling to have the parchment inside of your tefillin checked to make sure that every word is intact and written correctly, press 2 now or say I'm calling to have the parchment inside of my tefillin checked to make sure that every word is intact and written correctly. If you are calling to learn more about the significance of the mitzvah of tefillin, press 3 now or say I hate these automated systems.
I hate these automated systems.
You have chosen to speak to a representative to learn more about the significance of the mitzvah of tefillin. If this is correct, say correct, or mash your palm over all of the buttons on the keypad. Thank you. Please hold for the next available representative. Your call is very important to us. Please hold while we connect you to the next available...
Good morning, sir.
Hi, I'd like to...
Sir, please hold a moment, sir. Good morning, sir. How may I help you, sir?
Well, I'd like to learn a little bit about what this mitzvah means and why it's important.
Yes, I can see that you chose that option here on the computer, sir.
So, first let's start with the basics. Tell me if I have this right. You have the parchment with verses of the Torah written on them, including the Shema and other verses that speak about the importance of remembering the words of the Torah. And you put those parchments in 2 little leather boxes with leather straps. Do I have that right so far?
Yeah, you're doing great.
Then you wrap one of them on your arm and place one on your head.
Actually, sir, I don't.
What?
I don't have arms or a head!
Excuse me, sir, but I don't feel that you're helping me very much.
Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to calm down.
I am calm.
Sir, you're going to have to stop using that tone of voice with me, or I'm going to have to release your call.
What tone of voice?
Sir, this is your last chance. Now, do you want me to explain this mitzvah to you or not?
I'm sorry, please do.
You wrap one of the boxes on your weaker arm. For most people, that's the left arm, which puts the tefillin right next to your heart. Then you place the other box on your head above your eyes. This symbolizes that both your feelings and your thoughts are wrapped up with Torah and mitzvahs.
That's beautiful. I feel so holy right now.
Okay, all right. Save the touchy-feely stuff for someone else who likes that kind of stuff. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a very important game of 3D pinball to finish. Oh, right past my flippers.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm Larry Goldstein, and this has been the Parsha Report.
Very cute, is it not? All right. Moving on to Pirkei Avot. Yes, indeed. Pirkei Avot. We're going to do Mishnah 10 in chapter 4 today.
Pirkei Avot, Perek Daled, Mishnah Yud, 10th Mishnah, in the 4th chapter, Masechet Avot. Rabbi Meir Omer, said Rabbi Meir, Havi mima'et ba'esek, minimize yourself in business, va'asok b'Torah, engage in Torah. Meaning we're assuming, Rabbi Meir assumes, of course everybody has to work. But when you work, there's a work balance and a Torah balance. So what do you put more of your efforts and your energy? So a person can work more and engage in Torah less, or the other way around. Do less business, and engage yourself in the study of Torah. Okay? Is humble, low of spirit, before every person. Even to learn from people who are less wise than you, less intelligent than you. You can learn from everyone. If you are mevatel Torah, i.e. you wasted your time and didn't study Torah, there are many betelim, okay, wasters, time wasters, kenegdecha, corresponding to you. So there's a number of ways of interpreting this. The Bartanura says, she is sayula batelcha. Right? If you want to waste time, you got plenty of things to waste time on. You got video games, you got work, you got all these crazy things you have to do. Okay? That's one interpretation. Or he says, perush acher, another interpretation. Yesh ba'olam kama bitelim. Okay, there are a number in the world of bitelim. Batel, or things that are negated. Shemer v'sha'im v'chayot ra'ot. With the wicked people and wild animals. Shem bitelim v'ayadam HaKadosh Baruch Hu yavi alecha puranut. They are what's called bitelim, and through them, Kadosh Baruch Hu will bring puranut. Will bring trial, tribulation, tragedy. So if you're mevatel Torah, yesh bitelim harbe kenegdach. There's a lot of I would say trials and tribulations that are kenegdach, standing up against you. But Torah, if you study Torah, then he has a lot of reward to give you. So which interpretation do we like better, or which do we find more appealing? So of course we find appealing, right? If you want to waste time, if you want to not study Torah, there's a lot of opportunity not to study Torah. Many opportunity on this very YouTube channel. You could waste tons of time on the internet. But if you study Torah, you have a lot of reward. The only problem with this interpretation, as appealing as it is and there's no correspondence there's no correlation between the first part and the second part. Meaning, in the second part, you have a lot of reward. So what's the opposite of reward? Anti-reward, punishment. So that's the Bartanura's second interpretation. Either way, as we're pointing Rabbi Meir, spend your time studying Torah. Kadosh Baruch Hu will help you and he'll reward you as well. Stop here. Dedicate our learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Have a great day.
All right, fantastic. Wow. That was easy, right? And now, Tehillim. All right, let's do this. All right, we're saying chapter 121, and we're going to sing it back to the song. All right. Tanya for today, the 12th day of the month of Av.
Thank you for joining Tanya in 5. Today's lesson for the 12th of Av, we conclude the 4th letter of the Igeres HaKodesh. This letter is speaking about tzedakah, charity, and how charity, when it's done in a joyful manner, giving in a way that it allows us to touch the innermost point of our heart, that which is covered over, and not allowing us to experience that God is our true life. Why? Because charity is giving us is what we put our life into. It adds to our life. It gives us vitality, the money that we earn, and now that we give it towards charity means that we're giving our very life to God in that act of being charitable. So the Alter Rebbe concludes and says, as he brought in the verse at the very beginning, that tzedek lefonav yahalech, that righteousness or charity goes forth before him, before God. So first of all, the word before him means before God, but it has the word panim in it, means face. Before a person means in the face of the person. So here in the face of God, meaning the inwardness of God. And how do we touch the inwardness of God? So the word yahalech, the Alter Rebbe said, should have been stated yelech, means that your righteousness, your charity brings you before God, to the inwardness of God, but it doesn't mean, it's a causation. It causes something else to go before God when you are charitable. And what is it that it causes? It causes the charity, as we just said, to allow you to touch the innermost point of your heart, that innermost point, that God is your true reality and your entire life, that now is before God. And this is therefore will lead a person that in the steps towards the ways of God, as it's written, that you shall walk in the ways of God. What does it mean to walk in the ways of God? In other words, just as God is, so are you. So just as you're touching his inwardness because you touched your inwardness, and in your inwardness, what are you finding there? That God is your true, your ultimate and your only reality, and therefore it will express itself that you are being like him. So that means in every performance of a commandment, of a mitzvah, the study of a Torah, which is equivalent to them all, you will do it in a way that is ascending unto God through the inwardness of your heart, which is your true being. And this is much greater, as we expressed earlier, that there's another layer of the heart, which is the outer part of the heart. And the outer part of the heart is achieved by reaching it through contemplating and understanding the greatness of God and your relationship with God. But that understanding is something that is external. It's not you, it's your understanding of God and the greatness of God. So it's not you. Here we're talking about you're touching the very you, the inwardness of the heart, and therefore it stands before God, and it causes you to act in that manner like God, following his ways, and therefore it's much greater than contemplating the greatness of God. And through this arousal from below, this is all through the act of being charitable that allows us to reach that inwardness of the heart. And because of that, charity is called shalom, peace, because the word peace means that there's a struggle, and now you overcome the struggle, and there's peace. This is the idea that my soul was redeemed in peace. My soul, because my soul can be attached to externalities, can be attached to negativity. And therefore, by way of charity, which is called peace, it allows to bring the peace to my soul, to be redeemed in peace. And what is that peace? That we have peace between us and our Father in heaven, meaning that the inwardness of my soul, which is a part of God, which is truly a part of God, now is connected to the inwardness of God because it is a part of him. And this is, again, redeeming ourselves from the chisanim, from the external powers that our heart may be engaged in. So this is what charity achieves, and the Alter Rebbe says in conclusion, this is especially true when it comes to charity for the land of Israel. As the Alter Rebbe was giving funds to Mendel Haradoker, who had made Aliyah to Israel, and for the Hasidim that lived there and went through very difficult times. And the giving to charity to the land of Israel is especially, brings out this idea. Why? Because the eyes of God, the Lord our God, is constantly upon the land, meaning that God's eyes are always there. And therefore this will bring to a greater redemption for our souls, that it will stand for us forevermore, that the radiance of God should radiate upon us, as the Alter Rebbe concludes, Amen, may it be his will. And that is Tanya in 5. Thank you for joining.
All right. Fantastic. Absolutely incredible. Sefer HaMitzvahs of the Rambam. We are up to Mitzvah Minute class number 83. Today's mitzvahs.
Yesterday we had the mitzvah of Yibum, that where a man dies childless, his brother is to marry the wife of the deceased man to ensure that the dead brother's legacy will have a continuation. However, what happens if the brother doesn't wish to perform this marriage? For that we have today's mitzvah, positive mitzvah 217, known as chalitza. The Torah says that in case the brother does not wish to perform the levirate marriage, a special process must be followed. Both he and the deceased man's wife must appear in the court. A number of actions are taken, a number of verses are recited to indicate that this marriage is not going to take place, after which the woman is free to marry whomever she likes. The reason this process is called chalitza is because part of the ceremony was, as the word chalitza means, removal. The woman would remove the shoe of the dead man's brother.
All right. All right, fantastic. Excellent, excellent, excellent. This brings us to matters of Mashiach. Menachem Av. The month is named after Mashiach. Sanhedrin, Mashiach's name is Menachem. It's the month when Mashiach is born and his spirit, his mazel, shines strongest. Furthermore, the astrological sign of the month of Menachem Av is Aliyah, a lion. This indicates that the lion shall come in the month of the lion and rebuild the temple, which is called Hashem's lion. The first lion refers to Hashem, the second to the month of Menachem Av, and the third Hashem's lion, which is the temple itself. Therefore, it's a particularly fitting time to ask Hashem to bring Mashiach, as is every time. We find a similar concept in the Torah reading of this time. On behalf of the 12 tribes, Moshe asked Hashem to lead the Jewish people into the land of Israel. Moshe's request was refused only so that we could complete our work through exile and reach an even higher plane. Well, now that that's complete, the Rebbe says, Hashem is ready to grant our request. So all we have to do is ask Hashem and demand from Hashem that he bring Mashiach now. Yeah, you like that? I like that a lot. RPSAs. All right. All right, must be a soup kitchen and food pantry available by texting the word food to 726-879. You can get 7 days worth of pantry food and hot meals every single day for you, for your family, for your friends, whoever needs it. No questions asked. It's an amazing, amazing place. I have been there. I have seen it. Yep. In Rockland County, it's tomcheShabbos.org, and in Lakewood, it's tomche.org, while in Chicago, it's the Chicago Center Kitchen at breakfastwithelli.live/Chicago Food Bank. Achi Ezer organization is there for all your other needs, and they're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, as well as Hatzalah, hatzalah.org. At any of these phone numbers listed here on your screen, or, yep, hatzalah.org. If you are, God forbid, the victim of or see a hate crime in progress, you need to call 911 immediately, even on Shabbos and even on Yom Tov. And in times of bereavement, misaskim.org is the place to go. They have everything you need for preparing for a funeral, for the Shiva, for after the Shiva, for aftercare, for counseling, for follow-up. They do absolutely everything. They're an amazing organization. You can use them or contribute to them, whatever you'd like. JustOneShabbos.com. JustOneShabbos.com is bringing youth back to the beauty of keeping Torah and mitzvahs by keeping Shabbat. If you'd like to help them out, contact them or just invite a youth to your table. A youth. All right, and please wear a mask. I was out and about yesterday. COVID test for shoot and you know what? I'm appalled. I mean, the only people wearing masks were at the COVID center, testing center for the shoot that I'm on tomorrow, which I can't tell you about yet. But everywhere else that I was, no one was wearing masks. No one was wearing masks at bingo. It was a little disheartening. People are not taking this seriously. All right? We are still in the throes of this thing. People have to get vaccinated, and you have to wear a mask to protect yourself. I really, really, really mean it. Okay? All right. For Tuesday, Yom Shokul Beiki Tev, the 12th day of Av, the 9th day of Av, the 9th day of August. The Alter Rebbe quoted the Maggid in the name of the Baal Shem Tov. The mitzvah of Ve'ahavta l'recha kamecha, to love your fellow as yourself, is an interpretation and commentary to the mitzvah to love Hashem your God. Because whoever loves their fellow loves Hashem, because we all have in ourselves a part of Hashem from above. Therefore, when you love your fellow, you are in essence loving Hashem. Seems simple, right? All right, bring heaven down to earth. Despair is the ultimate form of self-worship. The perception that you have the capacity to truly mess things up, to take the world's destiny out of the Creator's hand and sabotage his plans, chutzpah. Know that the world is in a constant state of elevation, rocketing upwards towards its ultimate wholeness at every moment. Every quiver of every leaf, every subtle breeze, every slightest motion of any particle of our universe is another move in that same direction, directed by Hashem. Even those events that seem to thrust downward are in truth only part of the ascent. Like the poise of an athlete before he leaps, the contraction of a spring before its energy is released. There's not a thing that you can do to halt that dynamic even for a moment. True, you have to take responsibility for your deeds and work hard, very hard, to clean up your own mess. But when all the dust settles, you are exactly in the space where you were meant to be. And where is that? One step closer. Want to talk more about that? Come to me on any of the Actors Rabbis platforms at WhatsApp, Twitter, Spaces, Telegram, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify Live, LinkedIn, Clubhouse, theactorsrabbi.com. And if you come to theactorsrabbi.com, oh, there's the count. That's good. Yeah, come to theactorsrabbi.com. You can sign up for life coaching services should you need them. I am a licensed life coaching coach. All right, let's make it happen, bro.
Baruch ato Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam boirei nefashos rabois v'chesroinan al kol ma sheborosa lachayos bohem nefesh kol chai baruch chei haolamim.
All right. We have come to the end of another broadcast today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to my Patreon sponsors, Pest Pro Riddle, Tarzan Orchids, DVD, Dr. Susan Sports, Go to patreon.com. patreon.com/theactorsrabbi, or our virtual tip jar at breakfastwithelli.live/tip jar, or use this handy QR code on your screen right there. All right. It is Tuesday, Yom Shehukvei Kitev, the day that Hashem said twice it is good, so you have to double your efforts today to do nice things and good things for great and wonderful everybody's. Because everybody is great and wonderful. And if you keep that in mind, yes, everybody. Ha! There was a comment. If you keep that in mind, if you have, in the words of Rabbi Isaac Hamler, affection for a fellow, Hashem will have affection for you. Do a kindness for a fellow, Hashem will do a kindness for you. Befriend a fellow, Hashem will befriend you. Ahavat Yisrael, just love your fellow as you love yourself. And that contains a mitzvah that you have to love yourself as well. Yep. Self-love. You have to be happy with who you are. Okay? And I know you can do that because you all are wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. Come back tomorrow. Although tomorrow will be pre-recorded, as far as I know. Tomorrow will be pre-recorded because I'm going to be on a set. And I can't tell you where yet. But it's something Jewish. Yeah. How about that? Can I tell you that? I don't know. I did. So, what can I tell you? All right. Sheyafutzu Menasecha Chutza. Oh my goodness, this is, I heard this song yesterday. Yesterday, yes, it's brand new. I heard this song yesterday, and I absolutely, positively fell in love with it. Let me see if I have the little gizmo for it. I had a promo to show you here. Yes, I do. Here we go. Lech Sheyafutzu Menasecha Chutza. Naftali Kemper is singing this. It says that the Baal Shem Tov ascended in one of his dreams. He ascended to heaven, and he went to the chamber of Mashiach. And he asked Mashiach, when are you coming? Emosai koasimar. When are you coming, Master? And he was answered by Mashiach, Lech sheafutzu manasecha chutza, when the well springs of your Torah are spread to the outside. All right? Here's Naftali Kemper with Sheafutzu Manasecha Chutza. I will see you tomorrow. Please bring one more person to watch or listen with you. I love you so much. Bye.
כשהבעל שם טוב הקדוש הגיע להיכלו של משיח ושאל מתי הוא כבר יגיע יחי שיפוצו מיינו יסחו חוצו כוסימה Mosai Cosima, Mosai Cosima, Mosai Cosima, Mosai Cosima, Lidis Yafutsu, Meine Secho Chutzo, Lidis Yafutsu, Meine Secho Chutzo. שיפוצו, מי נצחו חוצו, כוסימה, כוסימה. אוי, מוסאי, מוסאי, כוסימה. Mosai Cosima, Mosai Cosima, Mosai Cosima, Lidis Yafutzu, Meine Liege sheo futzo, meine secho futzo. Liege sheo futzo, meine secho futzo. Liege sheo futzo, meine secho futzo.
Till tomorrow.